Nobody on Earth saw it coming. That was the worst part. Not the fire, not the shaking ground, not the millions of screams that filled the air all at once. It was the fact that one moment the sky was blue and calm, and the next moment it was filled with 400 warships blocking out the sun. Han Dojin was standing on Gateway 1, Earth's only orbital station, when the alarm started screaming. He was a colonel then, not yet the man the galaxy would learn to fear. He was drinking black coffee and reading a report about trade shipments when the first officer grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the observation window. Dojin looked out and felt his blood turn cold. The ships stretched across the darkness of space like a wall of metal and death. They were council ships, Imperium ships, ships belonging to the same government that had welcomed humanity into the galactic community just 12 years ago. There was no warning, no transmission, no demand, no declaration of war. The fleet simply arrived, arranged itself into bombardment formation, and opened fire on the planet below. The first kinetic rods hit East Asia. They came down from the sky like the fingers of an angry god, punching through the atmosphere and striking the surface with the force of nuclear bombs. Seoul vanished in a flash of white light. Tokyo followed 3 minutes later. Then Beijing. Then Mumbai. Then Jakarta. One by one, the greatest cities on Earth were erased from existence as if they had never been there at all. Dojin watched from the observation window as his homeworld burned. He could see the impacts from orbit. Bright flashes of orange and white blooming across the surface of the blue planet like flowers made of fire. Each flash was a city. Each flash was millions of people. He gripped the window frame so hard that his fingers bled, but he did not look away. He forced himself to watch every single second. The bombardment lasted 9 hours. 9 hours of continuous fire raining down on a planet that had no orbital defenses, no energy shields, no fleet of warships to fight back. Earth had been a peaceful member of the Council. They had followed every rule. They had paid every tax. They had sent their young people to work on alien construction projects without complaint. And now, the Council was killing them. The reason came later, though it hardly mattered. High Arbiter Vashan, the ancient ruler of the Galactic Council Imperium, had looked at the numbers and decided that humanity was growing too fast. Their population was expanding. Their technology was advancing at a rate that made other species nervous. So Vashan had signed an order for what the Council called a corrective bombardment. It was not meant to destroy humanity completely. It was meant to break them, to crush their spirit, and remind them of their place in the galaxy. It was punishment for the crime of being too ambitious. And they broadcast the whole thing live. Every species in the galaxy watched it happen in real time on the galactic network. Hundreds of worlds, billions of alien eyes, all watching as a planet burned and its people died. The Council wanted everyone to see. The message was simple and clear. This is what happens when a species forgets its place. When the bombardment finally stopped, 1.2 billion human beings were dead. The number was so large that it did not feel real. It was just a number. But on the ground, it was not a number. It was mothers holding dead children. It was fathers digging through rubble with bleeding hands. It was entire families turned to ash in an instant, leaving nothing behind but shadows burned into concrete walls. In the ruins of Incheon, a woman named Shin Nari pulled herself out of a collapsed hospital. She was a field medic. She had been treating a child with a broken arm when the ceiling came down. The child did not survive. Nari crawled through the dust and smoke, her ears ringing, her left leg broken below the knee. She crawled past bodies she could not count. She crawled past fires she could not put out. And then she found a broadcasting unit, cracked and sparking, but still functional. Nari did not call for help. She did not beg for mercy. Instead, She turned the camera on and started recording. She pointed it at the dead, and she said their names. Every body she found, she recorded their face and said whatever she could about them. A man in a blue jacket, a woman still holding a bag of groceries, 2 children lying side by side, their hands still touching. She broadcast it all, and somehow her signal found its way onto the Galactic Network, alongside the Council's official feed. The galaxy had been watching the bombardment from above, like a news report, clean and distant. Now they were watching it from the ground, from the dirt and the blood and the smoke. Nari's broadcast showed them what 1.2 billion actually looked like, one face at a time. Some species looked away, others could not stop watching. Up in orbit, Gateway 1 was breaking apart. Dojin and a handful of survivors made it to a damaged shuttle, and ejected just before the station exploded behind them. The shuttle drifted through a field of debris, surrounded by the wreckage of the only home humanity had ever had in space. Dojin sat in the pilot seat of that broken shuttle, staring at the burning Earth below him. His face was covered in dust and blood. His hands were still shaking. But when he reached for the communication system, his voice was perfectly steady. He opened a channel to every surviving military unit on the planet and off-world. Every soldier, every sailor, every pilot who was still alive heard his words. "This is Commander Han Dojin. They think they have broken us. Record this day. Remember the number. 1.2 billion. We will answer for every single one." Then he closed the channel and sat in silence, watching his world burn. The galaxy expected Earth to submit after that. The Council expected a formal message of gratitude for being corrected rather than completely destroyed. Every other species that had been through a corrective bombardment had broken. They had surrendered. They had bowed. Earth went silent. No messages, no transmissions, no surrender, no gratitude, just silence. And in that silence, something was growing. Something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that would make the Imperium wish they had finished the job when they had the chance. The humans were not grieving. They were planning. 7 years passed, and the galaxy forgot about Earth. That was exactly what Han Dojin wanted. In the months after the bombardment, the surviving nations of Earth did something that had never happened before in all of human history. They stopped fighting each other. Every country, every government, every military force on the planet looked at the ashes of 1.2 billion people and made the same decision at the same time. There would be no more borders, no more separate armies, no more flags flying against each other. From that day forward, there was only one flag, one people, and one purpose. They called it the United Earth Defense Force, and they elected Han Dojin as its supreme commander through a unanimous global vote. Not a single person on the planet opposed it. The man who had watched the world burn from orbit and promised to answer for every life lost was now the most powerful human being alive. His first order was simple. Every satellite dish, every deep space transmitter, every communication array on the planet was shut down or redirected inward. Earth stopped talking to the galaxy completely. No trade requests, no diplomatic messages, no signals of any kind. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like a broken species crawling into a corner to die quietly. But underground, in bunkers and tunnels and hollowed-out mountains, Earth was working. Yoon Hana became Dojin's right hand. She was a strategist, the kind of mind that saw war the way a chess player sees a board, always 10 moves ahead. Before the bombardment, she had tried to warn the military leadership that the Council was treating humanity the same way it had treated every other species it eventually crushed. Nobody had listened to her then. Everyone listened to her now. Hana designed a military doctrine she called Silent Fang. The idea was built on 3 principles. First, never fight the enemy where they are strong. Second, Control information better than the enemy controls their weapons. Third, use humanity's greatest advantage, the one thing no alien species could match. Humans were willing to die for something bigger than themselves. Not because they were stupid, because they remembered 1.2 billion reasons to keep fighting. On Jeju Island, deep beneath the volcanic rock, a young engineer named Bei Juno ran a program called Project Dokebi. His team collected every piece of alien technology that had fallen to Earth during the bombardment. Fragments of kinetic rods, shattered pieces of council drones, a nearly intact plasma cannon that had crashed into a rice field outside Gwangju. Juno did not just study this technology. He took it apart, understood it, and then rebuilt it better. The aliens had always believed that younger species could never match their technology. Juno merged alien plasma systems with human railgun designs, creating weapons that hit harder and faster than anything in the Council's arsenal. He fused alien shield technology with human artificial intelligence, building adaptive defense systems that could learn and respond in real time. Every weapon, every ship system, every piece of armor that came out of Project Dokebi was something the galaxy had never seen before. It was not alien technology. It was not human technology. It was something new, something angry. While Juno built weapons, Park Sumi built something equally dangerous. Sumi was the director of Earth's Intelligence Bureau, and she was the most patient person alive. In the years before the bombardment, thousands of humans had been living off-world. Students, merchants, diplomats, workers. After the bombardment, the galaxy assumed these people were scattered and broken. Sumi found them, contacted them, and turned them into spies. Within 5 years, she had agents embedded on 43 alien worlds. They worked as cleaners on space stations, translators in trading posts, laborers on mining colonies. Nobody paid attention to them, because nobody thought humans were worth paying attention to. That was exactly what Sumi wanted. Her network mapped every Imperium supply line, every shipyard, every fleet position, and every weakness in the Council's military structure. One of Sumi's most valuable assets was not even human. Councilor Ithara, a moderate alien diplomat who had sat on the Council during the bombardment vote, had been carrying guilt like a stone in her chest for 7 years. She had voted against the bombardment, but she had not done enough to stop it. Now she secretly contacted Sumi's network and began feeding classified information to Earth. Fleet movements, war plans, the private conversations of High Arbiter Vashon himself. Everything. In the Kuiper Belt, far from any alien sensor range, Captain Quan Tae-ho oversaw the construction of something magnificent and terrible. The ESS Wrath of Sol was Earth's first dreadnought-class warship, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid where no one could see it. It was not a beautiful ship. It was brutal and functional, covered in railgun batteries and missile tubes, built for one purpose and one purpose only. 36 more warships were constructed alongside it in the same hidden shipyard, each one a weapon of revenge forged in silence and grief. Tae-ho had a personal reason to push the construction forward. He was from Busan. His entire family, his parents, his 2 sisters, his niece who had just learned to walk, they were all gone, erased in the bombardment. He never talked about it. He never cried where anyone could see. He just worked, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 7 years. Every bolt he tightened, every system he tested, every sleepless night he spent staring at blueprints was for them. And through it all, Shin-Nari kept broadcasting. Her recordings from the bombardment had spread through the galaxy's underground networks like a fire that could not be put out. Oppressed species, the ones who had suffered their own corrections, shared her footage in secret. They whispered a phrase that had no direct translation, but meant something close to, "The humans remember." It became a symbol, a spark of hope for species that had given up hope a long time ago. 7 years after the sky burned, Han Dojin stood in a command center buried deep beneath the mountains of Gangwon province. Around him stood Hana, Juno, Sumi, Nari, and a room full of officers who had spent 7 years preparing for this moment. Dojin looked at them, nodded once, and gave the order. A single transmission was sent on every open frequency in the galaxy. It was not encrypted. It was not hidden. It was meant to be heard by every living being in known space. To the Galactic Council Imperium, you killed 1.2 billion of our people and made the galaxy watch. Now the galaxy will watch what comes next. On the Council homeworld, High Arbiter Vashon heard the message and laughed. He called it the desperate barking of a dead species. He told his advisors that Earth had nothing, no fleet, no weapons, no allies. He said the humans were bluffing, because bluffing was all they had left. He was wrong about everything. The silence was over. And what came next would shake the galaxy to its core. The first strike did not come where anyone expected it. Every military analyst in the galaxy assumed that if humanity ever fought back, they would go straight for the Council's fleets. A desperate charge, emotional and suicidal, the kind of thing a broken species would do before it was finally wiped out. That was what the Council was prepared for. That was what Fleet Marshal Drenok had planned his defenses around. But Yoon Hana did not think like an alien strategist. She thought like a human who had spent 7 years studying every weakness in the Imperium's body. And she knew that the Imperium was not a body held together by its fleets. It was held together by its supply lines. Cut the supply lines, and the body would bleed. Varan Station sat at the intersection of 3 major hyperspace lanes in the heart of Imperium territory. It was not a warship. It was not a fortress. It was a logistics hub, a massive floating structure the size of a small city, packed with fuel reserves, ammunition stores, repair facilities, and communication relays. 5 entire sectors of Council-controlled space depended on Varan Station to keep their fleets supplied and their defenses running. Without it, those sectors would go dark overnight. Hannah had identified it 3 years ago. She had spent every day since then planning its destruction down to the second. Quan Teho led the assault. The Wrath of Sol emerged from hyperspace at the front of a wolf pack of 12 stealth frigates. And they did something that every known species considered impossible. They jumped inside the station's defense perimeter. Hyperspace navigation was an exact science. Every species in the galaxy knew that jumping too close to a large structure meant certain death. The gravitational interference alone would tear a ship apart. But Bei Juno's artificial intelligence systems had calculated the jump with a margin of error of 0.003 of a second. Human navigators, trained for 7 years in simulations that would have driven alien pilots insane, executed the jump perfectly. One moment, the space around Varan Station was empty. The next moment, 13 human warships were sitting inside its shields, already firing. The station's garrison was 80 warships strong. They were well-armed, well-crewed, and completely unprepared. Their shields were facing outward, designed to stop attacks from the outside. They had never imagined that an enemy would appear inside their defensive ring. By the time the alien captains understood what was happening, 3 of their ships were already burning. Teho commanded the battle from the bridge of the Wrath of Sol with a calm that terrified his own crew. He spoke in a low, steady voice, issuing orders with the precision of a surgeon. He did not shout. He did not curse. He simply directed his ships like instruments in an orchestra, each one playing its part in a symphony of destruction that Hana had composed years in advance. The human ships fought unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They were fast, aggressive, and completely willing to take damage in exchange for delivering a killing blow. Alien species fought with self-preservation as a core instinct. Their tactics revolved around maintaining safe distances, protecting their own ships, and avoiding unnecessary risk. Humans fought with a different instinct entirely. They dove into the heart of the enemy formation, absorbing hits that would have sent any other species running, all to get close enough to put their weapons where they would do the most damage. The alien crews did not understand what they were seeing. Human pilots pulled maneuvers that generated gravitational forces strong enough to kill most alien species. The humans survived because their bodies were tougher, their tolerance for pain was higher, and their willingness to push past the limit was absolute. A human pilot would black out, wake up 3 seconds later, and keep fighting. No alien species in the galaxy could do that. Tejo drove the Wrath of Sol directly at the station's core shield generator. It was the most heavily defended point on the entire structure, surrounded by turrets and protected by 3 layers of overlapping energy barriers. Any sane commander would have gone around it. Tejo went straight through. The Wrath of Sol took massive damage. Its forward armor melted. Entire sections of the hull were blown open to space. But the ship kept going, plowing through the barriers like a fist through glass, and the frigates behind it poured through the gap. 12 minutes after the breach, the frigates delivered their payloads into the station's core. Juno's weapons, railgun warheads packed with enough kinetic energy to crack a moon, detonated inside the station's fuel reserves. Varan Station died in a single, blinding explosion that could be seen from 3 star systems away. The entire battle lasted 47 minutes. 80 Council warships were destroyed. The station and everything inside it was gone. 5 sectors of Imperium space went dark, as their supply lines simply ceased to exist. Earth lost 3 frigates and 840 personnel in the battle. Every one of them had volunteered. Every one of them knew they might not come back. Every one of them went anyway. Shin Nari's voice was broadcast across the galaxy within the hour. The footage of the battle played on every screen, every station, every world that had a receiver. Nari did not narrate it with triumph or celebration. She read the names of the 840 humans who had died, slowly and clearly, giving each name the weight it deserved. And when she was finished, she said a single sentence that would echo across the galaxy for generations. 1.2 billion minus 840. The debt is still outstanding. The effect was immediate. On 17 Council-controlled worlds, oppressed species began open revolts. Populations that had been beaten down for centuries saw the footage and realized something that changed everything. The Imperium could be hurt. The Imperium could bleed. And if a species that had been nearly destroyed just 7 years ago could do this, then maybe they could fight too. In the outer territories, a warlord named Gen watched the footage 3 times. He was a powerful leader who controlled a significant fleet, and he had spent decades resenting the Council's authority over his territory. He had never challenged them because he believed it was impossible to win. Now he sent a covert message to Han Dojin, offering an alliance. On the Council homeworld, High Arbiter Voshin did not laugh this time. He executed 3 of his own admirals for the failure, and summoned Fleet Marshal Drenok, the same commander who had carried out the bombardment of Earth 7 years ago. Voshin gave him a simple order and an enormous weapon to carry it out. 2,000 warships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the history of the Imperium, with one mission: go to Earth, end the humans, leave nothing alive. When Dojin received the intelligence about Drenok's fleet from Counselor Ithara, he did not panic. He did not call an emergency meeting. He read the report, set it down on his desk, and looked at Yoon Hana with something that was not quite a smile, but was close. "Good," he said quietly. "I want the one who burned our world." Fleet Marshal Drenok arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system with 2,000 warships at his back, and he felt nothing but contempt. He had burned this world once before. He remembered the bombardment clearly. 9 hours of fire. Cities vanishing under kinetic strikes. The pathetic silence of a species that had no orbital defenses, no fleet, no way to fight back. It had been the easiest operation of his career. He had not lost a single ship. Now the humans had gotten lucky once at Varan Station, and the High Arbiter was acting as though the sky were falling. Drenok intended to prove that humanity's little victory was nothing more than a dying animal's last bite. He broadcast his demand on an open channel so that the whole galaxy could hear it. Unconditional surrender. Immediate. Total. He promised that if Earth did not comply, the bombardment would continue where it had left off 7 years ago, and this time it would not stop until the planet was a lifeless rock. Earth did not respond. Drenok smiled. He had expected silence. He interpreted it as fear. He ordered his armada forward, 2,000 warships moving in perfect formation through the outer reaches of the solar system, past the frozen rocks and ice of the Kuiper Belt, past the orbits of the distant gas giants, deeper and deeper into the system. They found nothing. No mines, no drones, no defense platforms, no fleet. Just empty space, and the distant blue dot of Earth growing larger ahead of them. Drenok's officers began to relax. Some of them laughed on private channels. This would be easier than the first time. As the fleet crossed the orbit of Mars and began arranging into bombardment formation, Fleet Marshal Drenok gave the order to charge weapons. And that was when the universe came apart around him. The first phase was called the Graveyard. Thousands of autonomous mines hidden inside asteroid fragments, frozen debris, and clouds of ice crystals activated simultaneously across a region of space 300 million kilometers wide. They were simple weapons, crude by galactic standards, packed with nuclear warheads and kinetic charges. But there were thousands of them, and they had been placed with the precision of a surgeon by engineers who had spent 7 years mapping every rock and dust cloud in the solar system. 300 Council ships died in the first 10 minutes. Some were destroyed outright, ripped apart by nuclear fire. Others were crippled, their engines blown off, their hulls cracked open, their crews spilling into the vacuum. The perfect formation shattered. Ships scattered in every direction, trying to escape the minefield, crashing into each other in the chaos. Before Drenok could restore order, the second phase began. They called it the Fang. 37 human warships, led by the Wrath of Sol, erupted from hidden positions inside hollowed asteroids, behind the bulk of Jupiter's moons, and from the shadow of Mars itself. They did not form a battle line. They did not face the Imperium fleet head-on. They attacked in small groups of 3 and 4, diving into the scattered alien formation like wolves tearing into a wounded herd. Each group struck a target, fired everything it had at point-blank range, and vanished into the debris field before the surrounding ships could respond. By the time the Council gunners locked onto a human ship, it was already gone, already behind another asteroid, already lining up its next attack run. The alien commanders had been trained to fight orderly fleet battles, formation against formation, broadside against broadside. They had no idea how to fight an enemy that moved like smoke. Then the third phase hit them. Bay Juno activated Project Dokebi's masterpiece. Hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon, and buried beneath the surface of Mars, a network of massive railgun platforms came online. These were not ship weapons. These were planetary siege guns, each one capable of accelerating a tungsten slug to a significant fraction of the speed of light. The Council's shields had been designed to stop plasma bolts and energy beams. They had never encountered kinetic weapons of this magnitude. Each slug punched through alien shields as if they were made of paper, and tore through the armored hulls behind them like a fist through wet cloth. Capital ships, the pride of the Imperium fleet, began dying. One shot, one kill. A dreadnought that had taken 3 years to build, was destroyed by a piece of metal that cost less than a ground vehicle. The mathematics of it were devastating. The economy of it was obscene, and there was nothing the council could do to stop it. The fourth and final phase arrived from the darkness behind the Imperium fleet. Warlord Gen and his armada of 600 warships dropped out of hyperspace directly in the council's rear. The Imperium fleet, already shattered by mines, harried by wolf packs, and picked apart by railgun fire, was now surrounded. The battle lasted 6 days. It was fought across a volume of space larger than the distance between Earth and Mars. Wreckage from destroyed ships formed new debris fields that became new battlegrounds. Escape pods drifted between burning hulks. Distress signals from dying ships filled every communication channel until the signals became a wall of static noise. On the fourth day, Quan Tejo found what he had been looking for. Drenok's flagship, the Divine Authority, the same class of ship that had led the bombardment of Earth 7 years ago. It was damaged but still fighting, surrounded by a ring of escort ships. Any other commander would have waited, gathered more ships, planned a careful approach. Tejo did not wait. He aimed the Wrath of Sol at the heart of the escort formation and pushed the engines to full power. His crew did not hesitate. They had followed him for 7 years. They knew what he was going to do, and not a single person left their station. The Wrath of Sol smashed through the escort ring, taking hits from every direction, its armor peeling away in sheets, its compartments breaching one after another. The Divine Authority tried to turn, tried to run, but it was too slow and too late. The Wrath of Sol struck the flagship amidships at full speed and kept going, driving through the outer hull, through the inner decks, through the reactor shielding. Both ships detonated in an explosion that blinded sensors across the entire battlefield. Fleet Marshal Drenok, the Butcher of Earth, died in the fire. Quan Tejo, the boy from Busan who had lost everything, died beside him. His last transmission, sent 3 seconds before impact, was the Korean national anthem, played on an open channel for every human and alien in the system to hear. When the battle ended, the numbers told the story. Of 2,000 Imperium warships, 1,743 were destroyed. The remaining ships surrendered or fled into hyperspace. Earth's fleet was shattered. Only 9 warships survived. Tens of thousands of human soldiers were dead, scarred, bleeding, burning in places, but still there, still turning, still alive. Shin Nari broadcast one last time from the surface, her voice steady and unbreaking, as she read the names of every human who had fallen in the battle. It took her 11 hours. When she finished, she addressed the galaxy directly. We did not ask for this war. We did not start this war. But we will end it, and we will remember every name, ours and theirs. That is what it means to be human. On the council homeworld, High Arbiter Voshan sat alone in his throne chamber, staring at the casualty reports glowing on the screen before him. His advisors had fled. His generals were arguing in the halls outside. His empire was cracking at the seams as rebellions erupted on 100 worlds. He looked at his own hands and realized they were shaking. In 2,000 years of life, through wars and purges and the crushing of civilizations, he had never felt what he was feeling now. It sat in his chest like ice. It made his breath come short and his thoughts scatter. And it was only the beginning. The Galactic Council Imperium did not fall in a single moment. It crumbled, piece by piece, world by world, like a building whose foundation had been cracked and could no longer hold the weight of its own lies. In the 6 months after the siege of Earth, everything changed. The defeat of the largest armada in galactic history sent shockwaves through every corner of known space. Species that had been corrected generations ago, beaten into silence and obedience, looked at what humanity had done and found something they had lost a long time ago. courage. On 100 worlds, populations that had accepted their chains for centuries suddenly decided they would not wear them anymore. Revolts spread like fire across dry land, and the Imperium did not have the ships or the soldiers to stop them all. Warlord Gen's alliance with Earth gave the rebellion a military backbone. Independent warlords and regional powers who had been too afraid to challenge the Council now saw which way the wind was blowing. They joined the coalition one by one, bringing fleets, soldiers, and resources. What had started as humanity's war of revenge was becoming something much larger. It was becoming a revolution. Han Dojin spent those 6 months rebuilding and planning. Earth's shipyards worked day and night, producing new warships from the wreckage of old ones. Gen sent engineers and materials. Liberated worlds sent volunteers. By the time Dojin was ready to move, the combined fleet numbered 1,200 warships, crewed by humans, aliens, and every species in between. It was the largest non-Imperium fleet ever assembled, and it had one target: Voshan's throne, the Council homeworld, a fortress station the size of a small moon, orbiting a dying red star at the center of Imperium territory. It was the seat of power for a government that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. It was where High Arbiter Voshan sat on a throne made from the compressed minerals of conquered worlds, surrounded by the trophies of species he had crushed into extinction. Park Sumi's spy network had delivered the final gift: complete blueprints of the station's defense systems, patrol schedules, shield frequencies, and the location of every weapon platform on its surface. Counselor Ithara had risked her life to get this information out, and now it was spread across the holographic table in the command ship New Dawn as Yoon Hana briefed the fleet commanders on the assault plan. Dojin addressed the fleet before the jump. He stood on the bridge of the New Dawn, and his face was broadcast to every ship in the coalition. He looked older than he had 7 years ago. The weight of everything he had carried, every decision, every life lost, every sleepless night, was visible in the lines on his face and the gray at his temples. But his eyes were the same, steady and unbreaking. "We go now, not for conquest," he said, "not for empire. We go to make sure that no world, human or otherwise, is ever corrected again. Today, the Imperium answers for 1.2 billion. Today, they answer for every species they ever crushed beneath their heel." The fleet jumped. The battle for Voshan's throne was not just a military engagement. It was the end of an era. The Council's remaining loyalist fleets, weakened by months of rebellion and desertion, formed a defensive ring around the station. They fought hard, because they knew what defeat meant, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy that fought with the fury of a galaxy's worth of accumulated grief. Yoon Hana coordinated the assault from the New Dawn with terrifying precision. She moved fleets like pieces on a board, redirecting squadrons in real time, exploiting gaps in the enemy formation the moment they appeared. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this battle, and it showed in every order she gave. No movement was wasted. No opportunity was missed. Bei Juno deployed his final creation, an electromagnetic pulse device, reverse-engineered from Council technology and scaled up to a size that the aliens had never imagined possible. It was delivered by a single stealth frigate that slipped through the chaos of the battle and detonated the device within range of the station's shield generators. The pulse swept across Voshan's throne like an invisible wave, and every shield on the station collapsed at once. The station lay exposed, and the coalition fleet did not hesitate. While the space battle raged outside, Shin Nari led a ground assault team into the station itself. She had not planned to become a soldier. 8 years ago, she had been a medic who bandaged wounds and comforted the dying. But the bombardment had changed her, just as it had changed all of them. She carried a rifle now with the same steady hands that had once held surgical tools, and she moved through the corridors of Voshan's throne with a calm purpose that inspired everyone around her. Something remarkable happened as her team pushed deeper into the station. Council soldiers, many of them conscripts from conquered species, forced to fight for the Imperium, began laying down their weapons. They did not surrender out of cowardice. They surrendered because they recognized her. They had seen her broadcasts. They had watched her kneel in the ruins of Incheon and say the names of the dead. They knew her face. They called her the woman who remembers, and they refused to raise a weapon against her. Han Dojin walked into the throne chamber alone. He had refused an escort. He walked through the massive doors, in his uniform, unarmed, and faced the being who had ordered the death of 1.2 billion people. High Arbiter Vashan sat on his throne, ancient and proud, even in defeat. His court had fled, his guards had surrendered, but he sat tall, because pride was all he had left. He looked at the human standing before him, this small creature from a small world, and he spoke first. You should be grateful. The bombardment made you strong. Without us, you would still be a nobody species on a nobody world. Dojin did not shout. He did not draw a weapon. He did not give a speech about justice or revenge. Instead, he reached into his coat and activated a small holographic projector. He set it on the floor between them. The projector filled the entire chamber with faces. Human faces. 1.2 billion of them, cascading from floor to ceiling, wall to wall, a river of photographs, names, and records that Shin Nari had spent 8 years collecting. Children smiling on school days, grandparents sitting in gardens, families gathered around dinner tables, young couples holding hands, workers, students, artists, doctors, farmers, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, friends. Every single one of them gone. Every single one of them remembered. Dojin looked at Vashan through the wall of faces and said 5 words. These are not numbers. Look. Vashan looked, and for the first time in his ancient life, the weight of what he had done pressed down on him like a collapsing star, and he had nothing left to say. The Galactic Council Imperium was formally dissolved that day. In its place, the victorious coalition established the Galactic Commonwealth, a governing body built on a simple principle. No species would hold supreme authority. No world would ever be corrected again. Counselor Ithra was chosen to lead the transition, with Dojin and Gen serving as co-chairs of a joint military council to keep the peace. A memorial was built in orbit above Earth. It was a vast ring of light, visible from the surface with the naked eye, and it carried 1.2 billion names etched into its structure. It was the largest thing humanity had ever built, and it would burn in the sky above Earth for as long as the species survived. Yoon Hana retired from the military and became the Commonwealth's first Secretary of Defense. She spent the rest of her life making sure no species could ever build an armada large enough to threaten a planet again. Bei Juno opened a joint human-alien research institute on the rebuilt island of Jeju, turning the technology of war into the tools of exploration and healing. Park Sumi quietly disappeared from public life, though rumor said she was still out there, still watching, still making sure the peace held. Shin Nari was offered every title and position the new Commonwealth could think of. She turned them all down. She went back to Incheon, to the same streets where she had crawled through rubble and recorded the faces of the dead, and she opened a hospital. Above its entrance, she hung a simple plaque with 3 lines. We remember. We heal. We endure. A statue of Kwan Tae-ho was raised in the rebuilt city of Busan. It showed him standing tall, one hand raised toward the sky, facing the stars with defiance, carved into every line of his bronze face. Children who had never known the bombardment would grow up walking past that statue every day, and their parents would tell them the story of the boy from Busan, who gave everything so that they could live. Han Dojin stepped down from all positions of power, on the day the Commonwealth was founded. He attended no celebrations. He gave no speeches. Instead, he took a shuttle up to the orbital memorial alone. He floated in the silence of space, surrounded by 1.2 billion names glowing softly in the darkness. And he placed his hand against the wall. He closed his eyes. "We answered," he whispered. "Rest now." And far below, on the world that had burned and bled and refused to die, the sun rose over the rebuilt cities and the green fields and the oceans that still sparkled under the light. Children went to school. People went to work. Life continued, as it always does, stubborn and beautiful and impossibly strong. The galaxy moved forward, but it never forgot. And in every corner of known space, in every language, on every world, from the oldest empires to the youngest colonies, the story was told and retold until it became legend. The humans remember.